Hello to anyone that's listening, which I think there'd be too many, but um, I'm going to start again. Always say the same thing. This is what I think is a pretty good possibility, right? We are spiritual beings in a physical body. We are all connected, now disconnected. Human thought creates reality. Human thinking creates reality. But we are unaware of this. Um, and our reality is largely determined by the physical domain that we live in. Largely, we operate. We even though we were supposed to all be connected, we now connect through technology. What was once naturally ours, shall we say, to operate and communicate mentally, that connection is now not. It's still there, I think, but I don't know that. But I believe it's still there, but we don't use it, and we're unaware of it. We know that we are all human beings, but we favour some human beings over others, and we like or dislike other human beings for different reasons. This is not how we were meant to be, because if 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 that premise that I've been led to believe is true, that we are all spiritual beings and all connected, so even though, like, I'm one little individual, I'm really just one little speck of the 8 billion, and they are all connected to me. So I'm a part of that, whether I like it or not, you know. But like I say, if you're aware of that, and as we are, we're now connected by, we use our artificial means now to connect ourselves. So, so we are less spiritual, because I think, because if we are spiritual beings in a physical body and we're all connected and our thought creates reality, therefore combined we are creating reality with our thinking. This and if we're all disconnected, then we're all thinking different things. So we're not going to create a stable reality. It's going to be a duality reality, a love-hate reality, a right-wrong reality, a dark light reality, a left right. Everything will be always in opposition. There will always be the other side. There'll never be a unity or actual stability, shall we say. There can't be, because if we're all connected but we're disconnected really in this world, it's no good saying, oh, well, look, I can connect by technology, because that is only effective in a very minimal way in comparison to the real connection. Because if you're really part of a little part of the big, and you're a piece of it, and you're all really connected, then you would automatically, that hive kind of mind, which it actually is really, even though in some ways, because I've always been a loner, I actually half find that hard to grasp. And even this, at first, I actually disliked it, because I liked the fact, oh, my thoughts are my own, I'm an individual. But, there, if that is a reality, that is the power. So there's no point in denying that if it is the reality, because then you would be operating uselessly. And this is what I think. This is what I think happens. But anyway, yeah. So if we are connecting just by artificial means, by technology, shall we say, I'll use that word even though I don't like to, but that means that our connection is still almost disconnected, because it's no good me ringing someone up on the other side of the world on the mobile phone and thinking that is a connection, because that's only a connection to one person. And also, I'm not really connecting with their whole mind, am I? I'm really connecting verbally via the technology. So it's very, very, very limited by comparison. I'm not saying that it isn't a form of communication. And this is what we're led to believe, that our communication is verbal, is via the technology. This is the physical world we live in, because we operate in a physical domain, which is ruled by the technology, and we are part of that technology now. Whereas our original natural technology shall we say. That's what I'm saying. We originally had a natural technology that connected us to every other human being. And if our thoughts create reality, which is something that is very hard to get your head around, then if we're all disconnected, our thoughts cannot create a stable, unified reality. It can't, because well, I suppose it'd be common sense, wouldn't it, really, in a funny kind of way, because we would only be communicating on such a limited way with the technology. With technology, I can't at this very moment connect with every other single human being on the planet. You say, oh yes, we can, that's the idea. Well, of course it has taken over and it is that way, but not in 1 second. You can't, and you don't communicate with you only communicate with those you choose to, and it's in a limited way. And also, you're not operating in the sense that you think your thought creates reality, and you're not combined thinking that. You are only verbally communicating what you're thinking, or what you want to communicate. Even it may not even be what you're thinking, because if you were communicating something nice and thinking something in your subconscious bad, that is the real thing that is going to create the reality, or at least a little piece of the reality. Because, like I say, it has to be, what creates the whole world is the combined thinking and combined reality. But I think I'm losing this probably, because it is difficult, and it's difficult even for me. I have to say that. Even I cannot grasp it, but I'm saying it. But if you think about it, if you did accept it, and if people actually knew it was a reality, they would be used to it. Just as when we first brought in computers and things, we did not have a clue how to use them, and we did not understand them. Now we use them like second nature, and it would be the same thing. And this natural computer that we had, our natural spiritual computer, would have been much more simpler and more natural for us, and more instantaneous, no doubt, too. And we would have seen results. Whereas with the other computer, it is a slow result, and probably not even the desired result, because you could be, because you don't think that your thinking creates reality, you could be arguing with people over what you think reality should be, and that creates negative thought, will then create negative reality. So as you can see, it's a duality world. It's very confusing, and that's the idea. It is a real test, and we have failed that test. I know I have, and we all have, because we're unaware of that, and because we have to operate at this limited range, where we are battling it out with other individuals, instead of just being the natural connection that is there, where there's unity. And the problem is that we're going to use the technology for this result, for this aim. And I say it's a problem because it's a choice, but if we had the natural technology and the thought creates reality, that would kind of make more sense, that would be not only more natural for us, but more beneficial in every way, I would think. And it would be more effective too. You could not fail, whereas even with technology, you can fail, because you are battling it out with technology, really. You're battling it out with other human beings when you use technology. You're getting your point across, your everything is in a disjointed way. It's not really united, because the technology feeds you the information too about your particular environment. But my environment might be totally different to someone else's environment on the other side of the world, and it would be. So it becomes where you're still disconnected, because your environment, wherever you are, is going to be, whereas if you were mentally all connected, that would not matter, and you would not believe in this reality, this false physical reality that's around us, because it is a false physical reality that we are in. Because if we are spiritual beings just in a physical body, then this physical world is very much a test, and it's very much there to challenge us on a daily basis, and it's very much there it's continually bringing us down to that physical level, which is the low negative level. And it then that creates a negative reality. But I'm going to stop here on this because I'm just making this point every time I make a video, because I think apart from dealing with the physical world, because there is a physical, because we are in this physical world, even though we should all be spiritual and not of this world, as they say, really. In other words, we should live in it, but we shouldn't let it influence us and direct us so much. But because we have now gone very much down that path to where we are in the total physicality, the total technology, it is a total technological world now, 100%, whereas originally it was minimal. We still made the same mistakes in many ways and still had not a perfect world by a long shot, because we still were not connected spiritually and we still believed in the physical domain, and we did not use our thought to create a good reality. But now we are totally governed by total technology, even more so. So that is even more of a challenge, in the sense that the information you get, as I say, will be limited to your sphere. So there will be more disconnection in a way, even though we have technology to really has connected us more, but it's actually disconnected us more as well, if you follow me. Because although you might say, well, look, I got the internet, I can communicate with the world with it, that is really no use, because each individual is still going to be living in their own little domain, which is different to, like I say, even in another area. You know, I'm living in a war zone, but someone else might be living in a mansion and thinking that life is hunky-dory. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that. And this is the thing. But, you know, so I'm going to close here, because I close off this part and talk about something that I actually was going to use a little story just to put an idea. And it's kind of, you know, I'm going to talk about how a few years ago, you know, I was walking along and I saw this little bird, right, that was injured, and I wanted to help it. Now, I at first took it over to the park, thinking that because it was on the street, you know, like where the roads, quite busy roads, and it was on the corner, it was on the pavement, and I didn't have any food to leave it, or any water or anything like that at the time, because everything was closed. It was after midnight, you know, it was dark. So I took it over to the park, which happened to be opposite, thinking maybe it would be safer over there, even though I'm actually taking it, probably at the time I didn't realise that even in taking it across the road, where it was probably where its mates were. Even though it was injured, it was only injured a little bit, like it had a slight injury on the leg. So, and also it was very young, so it could not fly properly, right? So that's probably what had happened. It was learning, and it had got maybe hit by a car a little bit or something, and was stranded there, and its mates had to leave it because it's dark and all this sort of thing, and so it was left there. Now, I had these decisions to make, and this is like human beings everywhere. We have a choice with all these things that are going on, with the technology, with the spiritual stuff. It's all a test to see which way we go. And obviously, like myself, and this is why I'm relating this story, because in this little story, this is just another aspect of my life, it was a failure. It turned out to be a failure, right? Even though I tried very, very hard. In fact, the harder I tried, the more I failed. But anyway, I'll get back to the story. So I took the bird over to the park. I've got to try to remember and go back. And it is very hard for me to not get a bit emotional about it, because I like birds, right? Now, took it over to the park, was over there for hours trying to find a spot to make it safe for him, and found a little place. But, you know, and I didn't want to bring him home, because I knew that I did not really know what to do. And I realised taking a bird away from the environment, all these things come to mind. And some people have said, oh, if you take a bird for a day or two and feed it until it gets a bit better, you know, you might be able to then bring it back to its natural state and re-release it, which is what a lot of people do. But these are professionals, not me, and I did not know anything about that particular bird, a pigeon as it was. I did not know anything about pigeons. But at any rate, the hours went by and I couldn't leave it there for some reason, because I thought maybe the other birds will attack it, maybe it won't survive or something. I just couldn't at that point. I made that decision and I did actually bring it home. Even though I'm not very good with animals, I never had animals in the place. I have problems with animals in a house even. But anyway, I brought it home and it was here for a bit and I fed it. I got the seed and stuff, and I even used to take it out on a regular basis for a few days, take it back to the park every day in my bag and try to let it out, because it became tame. Because see, what had happened, and I didn't realise this, was that the minute I took it, because it was only a baby bird, a young bird, and had been injured, the minute I took it with me, it actually started to think that I was its mother, even though I was a human, and obviously humans and pigeons are not the same thing. You know, humans are spiritual beings connected, but they're not actually, they are connected to all nature too, really, by the way, and that's why even I, who've been a loner, have always been a bit connected to animals. Probably because they're not as complicated as human beings, so I had the empathy and the sympathy and the understanding that they were innocent and natural and needed help, because in some ways birds and animals behave more human than what we do, because they are. They at least act natural. They tend to, pigeons in particular, tend to get on regardless. But anyway, I'm rambling again. But anyway, I took it home and it started to come to me, and basically I could even see instantaneously, even though I had never had a bird before, that that bird was seeing me as its mother bird, even though I wasn't a bird. Because it was so young, I was able to, that's what can happen, you know, whereas if it had been an older bird, it would not have done that. But because, and I guess you could, there again, I'm going to diverge. I guess I can say the old thing. If you take, you know, the old saying, if you give me the child for the first few years and I give you the man, well, look, there's a bit of truth to that. Because if you get anything young, the world that they get used to or what's presented to them, they will accept, because they won't know any different. Whereas if you're older, you can see things. This is the only advantage in being older, is that you do have that advantage, and I think it's an advantage in today's world anyway, where you can see how things change and you can see if something is better or worse. Whereas if you were born into the world, even if it wasn't a good world, you would accept that world because that's all you know. And this bird only knew me because the mother, you know, it was so young, the mother bird taken, and I took it. So it started to think I was its mother, and it was, and I let it, and because I do believe that birds, and correct me if I'm wrong, birds fly. That is the thing that makes them unique, you see. And this is why I'm saying any species, whatever is unique about them. And that's why I think humans have fell down, because if we do not know what it is that makes us unique, that we are spiritual beings, all connected, and our thought creates reality. If we don't know this and don't accept it, and don't believe it, basically, because even I didn't believe it, and even now I believe it, but I can't use it. But the thing is that it's the same with a bird. My attitude, at least with the bird, was a bird is meant to fly. That's what a bird is. It flies. It's not meant to be in a cage. So I had a cage, but I only put the bird in the cage a little bit, and basically after a day or two let him have this domain. He was actually here in this very room, actually, and would fly up there, perch up on the top of the thing there, and then would fly down to me. You know, I've always had a thing about yucky things, didn't like the poo everywhere and all that, and certainly, and didn't even like him flying on me. He always wanted to fly onto my shoulder, the dear thing. He thought I was his mother, and I loved him to bits, but I had my own things. But anyway, I still thought, hey, I think I've got to get him back to where he belongs, to fly around properly. I had that dilemma because at one point, because I had him here for a few weeks, I realised that he was actually accepting this small thing, because I used to take him out in my bag and take him down to the park and try to get him to fly, because he still was learning to fly properly. He could fly around here, but he couldn't fly like a real long way, I don't think. But if at some point he started flying a little bit around here. And when I took him to the park one day, I let him out, and as I always did, most of the time he'd just walk around a little bit, wouldn't fly, and then I'd take him back home, and he flew around here. And at one point, he was almost making it clear to me that he was happier here than out there, because he didn't want to go in the bag and go out. He was settling for this limited flying area. You know, when pigeons are supposed to fly, you know, and that would not be good. And it was difficult too, keeping it, that's true, but that was not really my main priority. It was still like to at least be outside a bit, you know, and to be a natural bird and to be able to fly a bit, and maybe even find some other bird mates. You know, I mean, there again, I was in fantasy land, but this is the way it's meant to be, isn't it? You know, this is the way it's meant to be for a bird or for a natural animal. And so I was in that dilemma of trying to keep him safe and secure and survive, because I knew that if I could have just brought him home and then just took him a few days later back down to the park, or even where I found him, and just left him there and said, hey, survive or die. But I couldn't do that, because I automatically, my human intellectual kind of mind, if I've got one, was kind of saying to me, no, you can't do that, because if you leave him in the same spot you found him, chances are he'll fly onto the road and be killed. And the park, I'm like, the other birds will probably turn on him, because when I did take him to the park, I was always with him, and I did notice that some of the other birds, particularly the bigger birds, were trying to pick on him. So there were all these things going around him. So I was looking for a solution where he could be a free bird and fly around, but to where he would still be safe. And I think this is like the world today. This is why I'm telling this story. Human beings are trying to be safe, but they also want to be free. I'm going to say that the bird, it did not end as I wanted it, even though that was what I was trying to do. Make him safe to where I could still see that he got food and had a safe place to, say, nest or rest, but to where he could also fly around and even potentially, if he had the ability, find another bird and make a real world. But essentially, I became very protective to where I did want to still keep to where I could see that he was okay as well. I did try to find that compromise, and when I found it, it did not work out. I still think that maybe it could have, but the point is that I now realise that I was delusional in the sense that in today's world, and I say in today's world because when I say today's world, with any animal, right, they're not in their natural environment if they're in the city where I am. There's cars everywhere. A bird's life in the city is precarious to some extent anyway, because there are cars everywhere, there are obstacles and danger everywhere. I was trying to make a perfect world where I could keep him 100% safe and survive and live to, because I kept saying live to 15 years like they're supposed to live. and have all the things that a bird should have, be able to fly around. Because to me, a bird that can't fly around, that's not a bird. They're not going to be happy, and they're limited. It's so limited, you know, like I say, I could have kept him here where he had the limited thing. And I kind of made that choice thinking that that's too limited, even though he was happy. He was indicating to me um, that he didn't even want to go out at some point. So he was accepting his limited space, shall we say, even for a bird to fly around, and thinking that I was his mother, which I wasn't. I'm not a pigeon, you know. So I was trying to give him the best of both worlds and trying to keep him safe, but also give him his freedom. In this world today, I do not think that is possible. That's what I found out with the bird. That was like, in the end, I actually said to myself, hey, if I had just left that bird there that very night on that road, in light of what did eventually happen after a period of time and all that effort on my part, he had a 50-50 chance of probably surviving, and the life that I suppose the best life that he could have in the city. And maybe his friends would have come back down that next morning if I'd left him there, and you know, his mother or whatever. See, there again, I did, because my fear took over, and I could not let nature take its course. Even today, I would still find that hard, but at that time I found it impossible. Now, what I'm trying to say is that I think I might bring this closer. I hope I don't look too bad by bringing it closer. I think that in today's world, because it is not a natural world in any way, and the same for the bird, it was not a natural world. Obviously, if there were no cars and he wasn't there with all the cars around, like on the corner of two of the busiest roads, I would have left him there probably. I probably would have come back the next day, and knowing that he was injured at the time, because the injury cleared up in a few days. His leg got pretty right pretty quick, strangely enough. That's the thing, you know, because he wasn't injured where he needed any medical help really at all. No, he just needed rest and a safe place really. But anyway, if I, you know, if we were in a world where there wasn't traffic there, you know, I would have left him there, and I probably would have come back the next day and brought some food or something and left it if he was there. That's if he hadn't have flown off, because he might well have been able to fly. It's certainly a few days later. The thing that was difficult about the bird was that he was slightly injured, and that he had not fully learnt to fly, and that he was in a dangerous area, a spot. But see, that's the life of a pigeon in the city, you see, and this is the same with human beings. Like, that's what I've now thought the comparison, that we're trying so hard to keep ourselves safe, you know, and we're so fearful of everything that's around us in a way, and a lot of it's real too. We think it's real. I don't think it is actually real, but we think it's real. In other words, we see the traffic, that's right, and we think, oh, if we step out, we'll get knocked over. And you know what I'm saying? But in our world, it's not like that. It's like we have other fears of what we think will be a danger to us, to our lifestyle, to our families, to ourselves, to our physical body, you know. And so we try to create security. But like with the bird, the more I tried to make him secure and keep him safe, that meant limiting him a bit. Because never at any stage did I say, yes, I'll just leave him here and let nature take its course and let him fly off. Or even when he got better, even when he learnt to fly a bit, and even when his leg was better, I never took him back to the park and threw him up in the air and said, fly away, find your own way, be free. I'm not going to come back. I couldn't do it, you know. And in retrospect, even though I still probably couldn't do it, I shouldn't have picked him up in the first place. But what I am trying to say is, this is the world we live in, is that we are torn between this idea of security versus freedom. We want to make ourselves so safe and try to protect ourselves from all the things we imagine are around us, because unlike the bird, which did actually have real traffic around it, I think we live in a world where a lot of our fears are false, because as human beings, should we also not be like the bird, able to fly round, if you know what I mean? So that is the dilemma that I found with the bird, and it didn't work out for all my efforts to make it safe and secure, a bit like we do as humans. So much effort. Thinking it out. What is the best, to where he has a bit of freedom, or even as much freedom as I think is possible, but still keep him safe to where I can keep an eye on him. I can maybe feed him, because I become attached and become fearful, instead of saying, um, he's a bird, he's meant to be free, and I can't change the world, so he can only take his chance in this world. Humans, I think, have a much better chance of doing that, but instead they act like me with the bird. That See, the bird did actually have not he might have had a better chance than what I thought. That's what I now think. I saw it at the time that he had a very small chance of survival if I didn't intervene, shall we say. But in reality, my intervention did not lead to his survival at all, and caused me a great deal of anxiety and even guilt after I had made so much effort, because I realised that my choices had not led to his safety and had took whatever chance he had at freedom from him, strangely enough. So, so that's the thing, and I put that little story there, for you to make of it what you will. And I'm making it into a fantasy story that has some sort of meaning and some sort of you know yes, some sort of message, shall we say, as a story, rather than just a failed attempt at trying to save a bird, shall we say, or give a bird the best kind of life that he could have had, in light of the fact that I picked him up and then made him dependent on me too. See, so I made him dependent on me for a bit there, because he thought I was his mother and he was willing to live in a limited thing. Which, that's another thing too. The minute you do that, it's a bit like, as human beings, we could be quite prepared to accept a more limited existence if we think that that existence is safe and secure, shall we say. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I saw the bird, because I thought, well, birds are meant to fly. They're meant to be free. They're not meant to be in a cage, and they're not meant to even be in a room, because they're meant to be out in nature flying around. That was how I always saw it, and that was my belief then, and it still is my belief. Even though there are times when maybe now, because he's not around, I might say, well, maybe he would have survived if I had left him here in this room. I don't even know that, for that matter, because, you don't really know that. I felt very insecure having him even here, for that matter, because maybe some people might not like it or whatever, because I live in a very closed area. People are limited in their thinking too. Not everyone thinks the same way. This is the problem. We are human beings that are meant to be connected in our thoughts and know what is right. Because if we are at the higher level, I think we do know what is right and what is the best. But because we are all disconnected and our thoughts are not united at all, we really do not create a good reality, and we can't. Okay, well, I'll just finish off and say the points that I started with, as I'm going to do in every video if I make it. It's exhausting for me, because it's frustrating, because I know that I can't do anything. Like with the bird, I'm powerless, and I tried so hard to give that bird freedom, okay? But it was not possible, because in the world that it lives in, just the very nature of this artificial world. See, this domain for a pigeon is artificial, right? To live on the streets with traffic everywhere and pollution and
and not the natural environment. It's not natural for a pigeon, and yet pigeons have adapted to that. Even their diet has adapted to that. And we as humans, I think, are the same. We are also in a technological, unnatural environment for us, but we accept it too, and some of us even like it. We think it is how we are meant to be. Well, that's a choice, you see. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not going to argue that. All I'm going to say is, do you think a bird should be in this artificial environment? No, it shouldn't be, but that's our world, you see. We've created it, and the animals have to be part of it too, and they adapt to it too, and so they change. But it does limit their survival too, as I think it will limit ours. But that's only my opinion, and so take it for what you will. And I could go into more details, but these videos exhaust me because there's a lot of frustration in it. Because if you do hold to those ideas, which have only come to me very recently, because, like I say, I am of this material world, but I can see, and I think most people can see, that the material world is in opposition to a lot of things. And I think most people kind of see that, but they're not getting to the source of it, because you do have to say this is not our world. This is a world controlled by a God of duality. It is a test all the time. Okay? So, if you don't believe that too, and you believe in, well, even the religions do tend to kind of teach that in a way, but we're still in the fantasy realm because we don't think that the religious gods that we worship actually have an impact on this physical domain. Whereas I'm saying I think they do, or but they're not, we still have free choice too. That's because we are not in our natural environment, just as the pigeon is not in his natural environment. A pigeon is, has adapted to being in a city that is not really a bird wildlife environment, which I'm sure you can all understand that. But he's adapted to it. But it's more precarious, it's dangerous, and the pigeon has to figure out how to be safe. And that's what I was trying to do for the bird, but I couldn't manage it, even though I was using every bit of um, mind power that I possibly could, and putting everything into it. I still, because I was trying too hard to create the safe, secure environment for a bird, and also give him what I thought was a bird freedom of being able to fly around. And, in other words, I was trying to control everything too much, you know, at the expense of freedom in a way. I was trying to control everything. I wanted it to be just right. I wanted the bird to make sure the bird had this, that, and everything. And it was a control thing in a way. I couldn't let it be. I couldn't let it take its course. Even though now I say if I had let it take its course, the bird might still be in existence. Because if the result was not, you might say, oh, no, you did your best. A lot of people said to me, no, you did your best. Whenever I mentioned it to strangers, everyone said, no, you did your best. You shouldn't feel that it was a negative thing. It just went that way. Whereas I actually did analyse it to such an extent that I did actually say, hey, no, my intervention didn't actually benefit the bird. And me trying to make him safe and secure, and yet still have the delusion that I was going to give him total freedom, was almost impossible to do. It would have the odds in that perhaps happening with all that security and all that control that I was trying to put into the situation as well was probably much less than if I had just left him there and took his chances, to where also he was much more likely to survive and be a natural bird if the others come back for him and if he was still in the same situation. Because the minute I took him here, I was automatically creating a dependency on me. So I was kind of creating a human dependency and yet trying to give him freedom. See, there's a bit of a contradiction there, because I wanted to even keep feeding him, like wherever he went, I was like, I want to leave him seed just in case he can't get it, even though, as we all know, pigeons can pretty much pick up food anywhere in their natural environment. I was not as aware of that then. So yeah, I was trying to control and make his world, more secure. And but the only difference between me and the world today is that I also did want to give him total freedom. But the two are sometimes at total odds, is what I'm saying. It's not always possible to have total freedom and yet have this control kind of security thing going. The two are different things. I could have kept him here. I could have even put him in a cage. If I had thrown him in a cage, like everyone said to do, he would still be alive probably now. But he'd be in a cage. He'd get his food. He'd have a few square feet around him. He was a wild bird, so it would have been extremely hard for him to adapt to it, but he might have. But even I'm like, that's not life. That's not life. Birds meant to fly. So I never thought that was an option. I still don't, And you can if you think different to that, if you want to live as a bird in a cage, you can, is what I'm saying. We all have that choice, and I've done that most of my life, to tell you the truth. I've been like a bird in a cage. And actually, because we live in such a technological world, that cage can still be interesting because you've got the technology to entertain you, shall we say. In other words, if I'm sitting here right now in this room, instead of my thoughts creating reality, I'm letting reality be created for me by the TV and stuff. So, I'm not actually bored some of the time. Well, I am now because I'm too aware, but I'm not actually bored because that becomes your world and you think it's not that bad. You don't think, and you might not even think there can be anything better, because if you're thinking in terms of security and limitedness and just safety, that will be enough for you. But like I say, I don't think a bird is meant to be in a cage, and humans are not birds, but they are still. They're meant to fly too, in a way, and we're not flying. I don't think. I think some might be flying more than others, or think they are, and they certainly think if they can get on a plane and fly around the world that they're flying. And that's because then you're saying that the physical world is the best that you can do. So the plane flying around is the best that you can do. But anyway, I'm going to finish with the few points, and you'll have to make of those what you will, and say, can we do better than flying around in a plane if we use that other thing? Because I'm just saying that, I'm just speculating and saying that I think that maybe we could, and that it's like me sitting here now in this limited war zone that is also very small, and I cannot connect to the other human beings because they are now connected by other means. So my human thought is limited. It cannot create a whole world reality like perhaps it should if we're all combined. Because number one, we're spiritual beings in a physical body and in a physical world and in a technical world. It's all physical. 2, we are really all connected spiritually, but we are now connected through the physical world. 3, in our natural state, all connected, and well, even disconnected. Human thought does create reality, but we do not think this. We do not believe it. Everything, we think everything is random and created in the physical sense. And it is too, because there is the physical domain that is ruled by the physical technical God that rules the planet. It is a physical thing, but we are not physical, we are spiritual, but we think we are physical, you know? So therefore we operate that way. We are unaware that we are just all spiritual beings, all meant to be connected. Our thought creates reality, and if we are combined, we can create then the power. It's a bit like the power of one is not very much. We tend to think, oh yeah, one human being can change things. We follow this person or that. No, I do not think that, and that's why it has never been. It works for a little while. We follow certain causes, we follow certain things, but we are up against. You cannot be a god as a single human being on this planet when there is a controlling God that rules, a proper God, that actually operates everything. It's an illusionary, technical world. And while we operate as single individuals, thinking that we are physical and technical too, instead of spiritual, where we're connected and supposed to be connected, and where our thought can create a reality, as opposed to us physically creating stuff. We can do that too, but that is not what we really are. And even when we think something, that actually is like our thoughts. Like most people would probably say, well, our thoughts do create reality, in the sense that if I think of something, then I will, but just me thinking it doesn't bring it into existence, does it? No. We would say then you think of something and then you have to do physical things to bring it about. So actually we only think the thought is the idea. And actually it is, but I'm saying that originally we were more better than that, should we say. Now we get a thought and we have to physically create it with our hands, or get other people to help, or work in this physical domain. I'm saying that originally we were meant to just be able to create it naturally via thought. This is now not happening because we're all disconnected, we're unaware of this. Our power is now limited, and which creates our reality instead of us creating it with the thought, shall we say. So I can't change this bad environment that's around me by my thought anymore, because there's too much technology, too much. Human beings are operating too much in the physical domain. So you're up against it. It is like duality, dark and light. So if I didn't like this and I wanted to change it, and I say this is hell, this is not good, I don't like it, I want to be out of it, I can't just by my own thinking. Whereas in a better world, in the world where everyone is connected and where they're aware of the human thought creating reality, and where they recognise that they're spiritual beings and all connected, and therefore they should not be in opposition to any other human being in any circumstances, regardless of whether that human being is or the test that rules the world, that duality. Not only the fact that we're stuck in the physical, which is surrounding us and engulfing us and tells us what we should think about things, and directs us pretty much that way, but also the God that rules, that's his domain. He controls it. He has the technology, because a God wouldn't it? Much more than what we are given. We are given limited technology, because it's a bit like, if you believe in any God, you know that God has got more power than you, don't you? You actually bow down to it even. You would say that. You'd say this God created everything, and I'm not saying that actually, I'm just saying the God of our earth. That's what I'm saying, our domain. Probably further than the earth, but not everything that is by a long shot, because that is limitless. And also, humans are meant to be part of those creations, because if human beings create thought, there should be this world should, in my opinion, this world should be totally different. But if you're operating under a limited belief, which we all are, see, I know this, but I'm still not able to do anything. And also, you have to not be dominated by the physicality, which is extremely hard, because how can I not be dominated by what's around me? And you know what I'm saying? Because a bit like that bird sitting on the corner there with all the traffic going past. If he was a spiritual being, he'd have sat there and said, that traffic isn't going to bother me. I know it's a construct to frighten me and to make me make choices, you know, but you know, I think I've lost everyone probably because I'm trying too hard to make the points. But anyway, there's the thought, you know, the idea of create. I think the main thing with the bird thing was that I come to that conclusion that I was trying too hard to control and make a secure, safe life for that bird. But I did not have the right to control that bird, really, even though my intentions were good and I thought the world of it. And, you know, was yeah, I cannot say how much it changed my life and ruined my actual existence, because I started to live my existence through the bird too, you know, like put so much effort into trying to make it safe and yet at the same time aware of giving it freedom. And it was not possible. It was just not possible. And so this is what I'm putting there, is that if you try too hard to control your reality by the physical means, not by a thought, but by the physical means to keep it safe and to make it a better world, you won't succeed, I don't think. You know, number one, spiritual beings in a physical world that controls what you see and think and feel around you, and you're dominated by it. And you know, it has some nice things, but if you are spiritual beings and you're all connected, but then you are disconnected and connected only by the physical world, by the technology, and you're unaware that the thought creates reality, you think you can only create it by the physical means, by getting into the physical world, then you've gone away from what, if that is true, then we are going further away from what is to our benefit, our growth, and our natural, you could say natural evolution, but in a funny kind of way. It's almost as though if that were the case, and if it was really the reality, and if we acknowledged it and actually put it back into use, it's almost as though we should have had it all in a way and should have had the solution to everything. And of course, if we'd been operating that way all along, there wouldn't even be any problems, would there? At least that's how I see it anyway. But, you know, call me ideological and call me that I've got it wrong, because if you think that, you know, that this world needs to operate at a total physical level, and that the only way to solve everything is through the logical thinking and the physicality, and you don't acknowledge that it isn't really even our domain, shall we say, that we're out of our depth, we're a fish out of water, then you'll continue to go along that line. And you know, I think it's, if those things are true that I said, then we're getting further away from actually making this domain a place for us. It's like the pigeon. The pigeon's world will not get better, will it? Not with the way we're doing things. The pigeon's world will become like ours, I think, more controlled, more, I mean, I don't see anyone even doing anything for them apart from putting up spikes so that they can't even land anywhere, because humans are so physical, they're more worried about a bit of bird shit type thing, you know. And I was too, even around this place when I had it here, you know, I was like that too. You know, I wasn't spiritual, I was physical too, even though I was trying to, I got attached to the bird and did want it to survive and have what I thought would be a good bird life, because I didn't even realise how bad this world was for pigeons at that time. You know, because I live in the city and I've only lived in the city, so I kind of think, oh yeah, it's natural for a bird to be sitting on the street corner with the cars all going past and all the pollution and all the obstacles and all the rubbish that's around, you know. But anyway, I'll close off now. I was going to tell another little story, but I think my stories are very long-winded and I'm sure no one's listened, but I do it anyway. Maybe it gets it off my chest if nothing else, because I'm very frustrated. You know, like I say, I think this world is very difficult to maneuver, very difficult to figure out, and to actually, like the bird, to find a way of living where you are going to benefit yourself. And I think the ways that we're choosing to benefit ourselves in the long run are probably going to be like the bird, where you think you've got it all sorted out, you think you've got all the control over it, and you think you're going to make it safe and secure, and just to where, because even I was operating very much on a survival mode, thinking for the bird too, just the bird surviving, as opposed, I mean, obviously I was thinking of the bird's freedom, whereas most people would say survival, just shove him in the cage, which is what people said. I was never able to think that way, thank goodness, but, you know, but still, I still did. You know, of course, if the world was safer, I would have been able to have come to maybe a successful thing, you know. But anyway, um, but you can try too hard even to be safe and secure, is what I'm saying, because I don't think it's possible in the world the way it is until we realise what we really are and how we can really perhaps change things a little bit to make it more better for most of us anyway. Then we'll always be at odds. We'll just be going further down, and we'll be expending a lot of energy on it too, but we won't be getting anywhere. We will be running around in circles, I think. That's how I see myself have done for my life, and even now that I'm aware, I still feel as I'm running around in circles, because everyone is disconnected. Everyone is not aware that their thinking is creating reality. And we haven't got control over it. Like, I haven't got control over my thoughts anymore. And I say this honestly with myself even, to where I can create the right reality. And also I'm disconnected from the other human beings, because they don't acknowledge that they're connected. And so therefore, whatever thoughts I'm sending out will be going to some human beings, but they won't be picking it up clearly. They'll be picking up clearer if they listen to this, which is wrong in a way, even though this is being more effective now, because if we do not realise that we're all connected, then we use this for connection. But how many people are listening to this video? None, as far as I can see. No one listens to any of my videos. I haven't got any views at all. So basically, I'm still working better by putting thoughts, but if my surroundings are bad, then it's very hard for me to put out positive thoughts. And also, they are not receiving them clearly because they're disconnected. So if I was thinking all this stuff that I'm saying now, and I'm thinking it, it's not going to people directly. It's going more direct this way, but unfortunately I'm not getting any views because they're disconnected. So they only pick up some of my words. It's no good picking up a word or two out of a sentence. You have to have the whole sentence. You have to have the whole thing to even grasp what I'm talking about. And even what I'm talking about is hard to grasp if you are in this physical domain, because I know I was in it for all my life. So I would have said that sounds very good, but it's even more far-fetched than most religions. Anyway, I'm closing off because it gets too complicated and even I get confused because I don't have a very good narrative. But thank you for listening, even though I know one has, but you know, it's worth my try. It's worth it to put it out there. Good night, and I'll maybe make another one if I'm still here. Thanks.
Stop streaming, yes.